For the spout and the handle, I'm going to throw them off the hump, which is you take a large lump of clay and just center a little bit on top of it. So that's what I'm going to do now. And I'm going down a little bit further than I need to, because it's an open bottom piece, essentially. I pull out the center. And then all I'm doing is pulling up into a very narrow cone. I want this to be light, so I want this to be nice and thin. I don't want it to be too big. I got a lot more clay here than I need. Actually, this is enough clay for the handle, so I'm going to go ahead and switch gears, take this into the handle. I think I was thinking handle when I centered it. We want the handle to be a little bit robust, so that it feels sturdy, yet small enough to feel comfortable. We don't want it to be too heavy, but we don't want it to feel flimsy. People are picking up something that's got some weight to it because it'll have some liquid in it, and they don't want that to feel dangerous. They want it to feel pleasant. They want it to feel secure. The whole experience of having tea from a handmade teapot should be a very pleasant experience. It should be an experience. It shouldn't be the same as microwaving your tea bag or throwing your tea bag in the microwaved water. It's a very different aesthetic, and not that there's anything wrong with that. This is just different. You want to make sure that this edge here is sturdy enough to take a knock or two. I'm going to tell people they can put this in the dishwasher and it better live up to that. But also it's out there, so that makes it more dangerous, more likely that there's going to be a bang. As long as I make that sturdy enough, it will hang on to it just fine. So now I'm going to make a groove down here, my knife, and I will take my wire tool, which is fishing line, we said, and I'm going to wrap it in this channel, cross it, spin the wheel, you can feel that go through, and it's done. I take my fettling knife, which I've just wet as you saw, and I'm going to stick it in that groove that I just made, spin the wheel so it comes up onto the knife, move it over to my wear board. This will be throwing the knob off the hump. I just center a very small amount of clay, and it still usually ends up being more than what I need. Go all the way down into the hump. It doesn't matter, because it's essentially a bottomless vessel. I pull the bottom out a bit, and I pull the side up. I want this spout to be nice and thin and light. They're small teapots, so I don't need it to be too long. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be cutting off some height on this. What I'm doing is just making a very thin cylinder, essentially. with a top that's collared in a lot. And because I want the spout to be very narrow for a pretty pour, I use my pin tool handle instead of my fingers when I get to the point. With a teapot, it works similar to a pitcher where you want to think about how the fluid is going to pour out of here, what that's going to look like. You don't want it to dribble, so you want this to be fairly sharp so it will cut the flow of the fluid. Not too sharp that it's going to chip easily. And if you make this spout really wide, very often your pour is kind of ugly and may even splatter and not go into the cup properly, and it's just a mess. Or it'll make a really big mess. Who wants that? Then you have to clean it up. So I compress down into the handle and I make that pretty narrow. And I'm going to use my rib to do some shaping. Get rid of fingerprints. Sometimes it's nice to have fingerprints on a piece with swirling lines. Sometimes it's not. Since I smoothed off the teapot body so much, because I'm going to do mishima on those, I want the spout and the handle to match that. I'm reshaping this just a little bit. I didn't like that severe cone, although you might. Your mileage may vary. Not sure if I'm loving this shape either. Tell you what I do with teapots and with handles, things like that. I normally make multiples of the attachments. If I make a half a dozen mugs, I may make a dozen handles. The reason for that is to find the handle that matches the best when it's up against the pot. The same thing with the spout. Some spouts will look better than others. And some will just need to be thrown away. I'm not going to make you sit through watching me make a whole bunch of spouts, though. Just want to give you the idea and the knowledge. So I'm cutting under with my wood tool, my wood knife. And the reason for doing that is I'm going to then take my cutoff wire, put it in that groove, cross it in front of me, spin the wheel slowly while I give that a gentle pull, and that just cuts it pretty evenly. It doesn't really matter if it's exactly perfect because the side of the pot is curved. I take my knife, which is clean and wet, This is a firm fettling knife. I put it in that line that I made. Spin the wheel a little bit, pick it up on, and then put it onto my wear board. And now I'm ready to make another spout or my handle.